parents and young people to legal support in the child protection space. My name is Catherine Gorder. I'm from the Community Legal Education team here at Legal Aid, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar this morning. I will start with an acknowledgement of country. Legal Aid Queensland acknowledges and respects the First Nations custodians of the land where our offices stand and where we work to help disadvantaged Queenslanders uphold their legal rights in our justice system. We pay respect to their elders, law, customs and creation spirits, and we recognise that these lands have always been places of ceremony, teaching, research and learning, and we acknowledge the important role Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples play in our community and in improving our justice system. So again, welcome to today's webinar. Apologies that I'm off screen, but our two lovely presenters are on screen today. I'd like to introduce you to Meg Little, who's a lawyer in our children and young people team in the child protection space, as well as Marie Henry, our referral pathways officer in our family law services team. Welcome to you both, and thank you so much for making the time to join us for the webinar today. A little bit of housekeeping to run through first before we get to the content today. The webinar is being recorded and the laws and content are accurate as of today and are subject to change. You can access GoToWebinar customer support if you have any technical issues today. Unfortunately, we can't assist you if you're having technical issues, but there is help available through the GoToWebinar customer support, so please Google that if you find you need some help. Today's webinar is a 1-hour webinar. There should be about 45 minutes of content, and we will allow about 10 minutes for questions at the end. You will see on your screen there's a space to type questions for the presenters, and we encourage you, if you do have a question during the webinar, just to type that in. I'll be monitoring that question inbox, and if we've got a relevant question, we'll ask it there and then. We do have a copy of today's PowerPoint slides available for download as well, so you can download those from the handout section, and we'll also forward a copy of those with a link to the recording after the webinar. So we'll kick off with a couple of polls today just to get a sense of who's joining us and to learn a little bit more about you. So the first poll is, what region do you work in? And I'm just going to launch that now. And there's a few options to choose from. They are South East Queensland, Far North Queensland, Regional Queensland or outside of Queensland. If you wouldn't mind just popping an answer there, we'll give you a few seconds and then we'll share the results. All right, a couple more seconds. Great, and I'll close that off and just share that. So, just over half of you are from South East Queensland. We've also got great representation from Far North Queensland and almost 30% from Regional Queensland. 6% from outside Queensland. So I'll just flag that with our presenters. In terms of the content being covered today, is it just relevant for Queensland laws or is it also relevant for people outside of Queensland?
From my perspective, if the child protection proceedings are taking place in Queensland, this will still apply even if the client is based outside of Queensland.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, and we'll just move on to our next poll, which is, what is your role? I'll just launch that one for you. Okay, and the options are support worker, financial counsellor or health education worker, social worker, lawyer or other. So we'll give you a couple of seconds to answer that one. Couple more seconds. All right, I'll share those responses. And okay, so we mostly have lawyers today. We've got 39% lawyers joining us, followed by just over 20% support workers and some social workers as well, about 17%, and 22% other. So welcome to all of you, and we really hope you get a lot out of today's presentation. We've just got one more quick poll to run through. I'll launch this one now. So the question is, how many of your clients are engaged with child safety or have children under child protection orders? And the options are none, a few clients, half of my clients, most of my clients, or all of my clients, just to get a sense of if you're working in the space at the moment. Okay, I'll close that one. And so it looks like just under half of our attendees have a few clients involved with child safety. Just under 20% say half of their clients, and about 15% say most of their clients, and another 15% about all of my clients. So great, thank you. That's just really helpful for us for context. Okay, so just to go over what you'll be learning in today's webinar, we'll do an overview of the Referral Pathways program, and then we'll do an overview of Legal Aid's child protection services running through our child protection duty lawyer service, our outreach legal service, our child protection legal advice service, and our early legal service. We'll also be talking about grants of aid available and how children can be represented in proceedings, and we'll discuss some referral processes. And I'll now hand over to Marie to run through the Referral Pathways program. Thanks, Marie.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Marie. I'm the Referral Pathways Officer here at Legal Aid Queensland. I'm here today to essentially toot the horn of our Referral Pathways program and to highlight the importance and value that it holds for vulnerable clients who may not have the capacity to seek legal assistance themselves. So the Referral Pathways program is set up as a warm referral pathway for vulnerable clients who are experiencing domestic and family violence, family law, and or child protection issues, who may, who require timely advice, and particularly those who lack the capacity to seek out that advice for themselves due to their circumstances or vulnerabilities. So it provides a critical support system for these vulnerable clients who might otherwise fall through the gaps. This Pathways program came about as a result of the 2008 Violence Against Women strategy, which found that occasionally clients, particularly those experiencing domestic and family violence, were facing a lot of barriers in self-referring for legal support. So rather than having the client having to self-advocate, you, the agency partner, can actually refer the client via a referral form, and then Legal Aid Queensland will make contact with the client within 1 to 2 business days to provide that legal advice. So in order for your agency to be able to make these warm referrals on behalf of your client, your agency must be registered for the Referral Pathways program, which I'll explain a little bit more in a moment. So the main benefits of the Referral Pathways program is to ensure your client gets access to priority legal advice services. So once that referral is received, we aim, as I said, to provide legal advice to your client within that 1 to 2 business days. The referral form has a section where you can provide critical information about what the client's current situation or circumstances are, essentially what is happening for the client at this stage. So by capturing that information on the referral form, we intend to reduce some of those barriers around accessing legal advice, because simply that the client is not having to self-refer or self-advocate. By providing that critical information means that the client doesn't have to be re-traumatized, having to retell that story again and again. In so many instances, these clients are, perhaps have been in the system for some time and have had to retell to different organisations. So we're trying to, decrease that trauma again. So obviously the lawyer will have some clarifying questions about the information that has been provided on that referral form, but at least they'll have an idea of what's going on for the client initially. So the RPP is designed to target a pretty specific client group, which is why the eligibility criteria has been established. So there are 3 main factors that we take into account when looking at eligibility for clients to utilise this pathway. So number 1, we would expect that your client would be presenting with at least one vulnerability. That may include, risk of homelessness, capacity issues, cultural factors, etc. I'll go into the vulnerability situation in a little bit. Number 2 would be that the advice that the client requires must relate to domestic and family violence, family law, and or child protection. more times than not, it'll be a combination of all three or a couple of those. And lastly, that the client must lack the capacity to self-advocate. If a client is able to contact legal aid themselves, then they shouldn't be going through this referral pathway program. There are other options. We always want to encourage, clients that do have that capacity to self-refer, themselves. We want to make sure that they're empowered to do that. So it's important that, if they do have the capacity, that they're not coming through this referral pathway. And that's when I come back to, it is quite specific, the client group that we're targeting here. So in order to access this priority legal advice through the referral pathway program, so your agency will determine that your client is vulnerable, as I said. So Legal Aid has determined that a client is vulnerable if there are no other means of support or assistance, which may be demonstrated by, say, financial hardship due to not working or because of domestic and family violence. They may be a young person or be in a remote area with no access to a solicitor. There may be a risk of abuse, homelessness, or serious financial hardship because of domestic and family violence, or being a sole parent. That they're not capable of representing themselves due to disability, language, or literacy problems because of cultural and linguistically diverse backgrounds, or perhaps difficulty reading and writing due to their age. For example, you may have a client who is under 18. Immediately that deems them vulnerable. They may be disadvantaged by a combination of linguistic, social, and cultural factors, which may be demonstrated by the client identifying as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. So the program is for people, who are more than likely not going to act for themselves without that facilitated referral or support. So the majority of our current agencies who are registered for Referral Pathways program are, not a surprise probably, but are of the Domestic and Family Violence Services. Having said that, there are no restrictions or criteria for agencies, to register as partners. Basically, if you have clients who you believe would benefit from a warm referral through the Referral Pathways program, then we're more than happy to obviously have you on board as a registered partner. As I mentioned, in order to make the warm referrals from your agency on behalf of your client, you must be registered with the Referral Pathways program. So the first step is attending an introductory training, which I myself will present to you and your team. So depending on your location, as I mentioned, I'm based in Brisbane. So depending on your location, I can do this either via, either face-to-face or via Microsoft Teams, if that's more suitable to you and your team. So in the training, we would look at things like, what the process is, how clients exactly can be referred in. As I mentioned, there is a referral form, but we would go through all the bits and pieces there. What if a client isn't eligible for the Referral Pathways program? What have they got access to? Are there other pathways available? What other services does Legal Aid offer? And, just basically what does it look like for you guys as an agency partner? What does that mean? What are your responsibilities? So after the training that I would provide to you, which only goes for approximately 45 to 60 minutes, depending on the size of the team, depending on questions and all those sorts of things, I would then send you an invitation to register, which is via email. If you're then wanting to, after you've learnt all about what the Referrals Pathway program is and the value that it holds for your clients, then you can simply respond to that email stating that you agree to become a registered agency partner. The agreement itself is rather informal in that there's no documents to sign, there's nothing like that. It is simply just an email stating that you would like to jump on board as a registered partner so that you can begin sending through warm referrals on behalf of your clients. So once your agency has agreed to become a partner, I would then send all the relevant resources, including the referral form and other information, including copies of my slides like we're going to do at the end of this webinar. And you're basically ready to start referring clients through. If you're already registered with the RPP, which some of you may very well be, or if you're not and you're interested in having further discussions or booking in a training, you'll find my email address at the end of today's presentation. Please reach out. We can arrange a training session for you and your team. I will mention, which is quite important, after you leave today, you may go, oh, you know, that sort of sparked my interest. I wouldn't mind having a look on the website to get more information. You're not going to find anything on the website. We do that particularly on purpose. So we basically want to ensure that all of the incoming referrals are relevant, that they're within scope and that they're appropriate for this pathway program. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out directly to me. I'd love to have you on board as a registered partner so that we can provide assistance to as many of your vulnerable clients as we possibly can. And that's about it. So thank you guys for your time. I'll now hand over to Meg and she will be speaking to you about child protection services. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have just noticed, I think we left your email off.
That's okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure. That's
so
handy.
we might have to provide that after
Yeah,
the fact.
I'll pop that in the email that gets sent
Lovely.
to the recordings.
Lovely. Well, that's where you'll find it.
Yeah.
Everyone. Not at the end.
So obviously you guys just heard about our referrals pathway program. I'm going to speak to you a little bit about what services the child protection team offers. I'm going to start with Child Protection Duty Lawyer Service. This is the service that's probably most commonly known to yourselves and your clients. And it is a free service that's operated by Legal Aid Queensland staff and preferred suppliers to give advice to clients on the day of court. As you can see on the slides, the Duty Lawyer Service can assist in various ways. However, it is important to note that they can only assist on the day of court. So if you have a client who has court in a week and they want to go to a courthouse a little bit early to try to get advice, Duty Lawyer Service is not going to be able to assist them. There are ways for the clients to get advice from Legal Aid prior to a court date, and I will discuss that further on in the presentation. However, it is important to note that Duty Lawyer Service is not the way to do that. There are obviously some instances where we cannot see clients through our Duty Lawyer Service due to conflicts. However, within Legal Aid, we always try to provide assistance where we can. So that might be reaching out to other lawyers who are at court on the day for their own matters and seeing if they can assist by providing Duty Lawyer Service. And if there is nobody available to provide that service, then Legal Aid does provide a letter to a client so that they can go and get advice free of charge from a preferred supplier in their local area. It's important for clients to bring a copy of any paperwork with them to court if they are going to seek advice from the Duty Lawyer Service. It makes our role much, much easier. The next slide just provides a list of some of the locations where we provide Duty Lawyer Service. Obviously, these slides will be made available after the presentation today. If you have any questions or you're unsure, get in contact with Legal Aid. We'll obviously able to confirm if there's going to be Duty Lawyer Service on the day that your client is seeking that. And then this is just an example of how a Duty Lawyer Service can assist. So in this case, we had a mother attend court for an application that was brought by the department for a 28-day order for her newborn baby. Child Safety had advised that they needed the order to conduct an investigation and that they required custody for the duration of that investigation. Our client in that instance agreed that she wasn't in a position to be able to care for the child and she didn't oppose the application. However, she was wanting to breastfeed her baby. The duty lawyer on the day was able to negotiate with child safety's lawyers to increase her contact from 1 hour twice a week to every day to allow her to be able to continue breastfeeding and develop her bond with her baby. The next service that I want to talk to you guys about is our legal advice service. So that's a telephone advice clinic that runs out of our child protection team 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays between 1 and 4 p.m. People can get advice at any stage through our legal aid advice service. They can be in the very early stages of involvement with child safety, or it could be the case that a child protection order was made some time ago and the parents are having ongoing difficulties and they need some advice about the best ways forward. Generally speaking, the advice sessions are about 20 minutes and the advice offered can vary. It can be legal advice specific to the questions the client has or more general, and we can also assist with some of the more practical things. So for example, explaining how a parent can go about getting telephone appearance to appear at court, or in some instances assisting with a legal aid application or explaining how the grants of aid processes work. It's important to note that we can't review large documents or draft affidavits or other documents for clients through our advice clinic. However, we can obviously assist the clients with submitting a legal aid application so that they can have a lawyer who will then be able to do those things on their behalf. The next service might be a bit more relevant for the 30% of you who said you are in regional areas, and that's our outreach legal service, which is designed to help provide advice and representation for clients who are living in remote and regional areas in Queensland. So the slide obviously provides a list of locations where we currently operate, and our advice for outreach runs, I guess, through our advice clinic. So it operates on a Wednesday. However, if we get a referral come through that's urgent or that needs advice prior to a Wednesday date, our team will obviously try to work that in wherever we can. At the moment, our referrals for this primarily come through the DCPL, OCFOS and child safety. There are also instances where the court recognises that parents need some advice and they will ask for it to be referred through to our outreach service. Very similar to our advice clinic in the tasks that we are able to complete. It varies quite significantly based on the client's needs. However, we can assist to provide or to complete a legal aid application for clients, in particular if they don't have access to technology to fill it out themselves online, or they don't have a local legal aid office where they can go in and physically hand complete one. Alternatively, if the client is in prison. We can also assist with ad hoc appearances or in-person advice. For example, if we have a lawyer who's already travelling to Kingaroy for their own matters in court, we can arrange for a once-off legal session to occur after court that day if the client is located in that region. The next service is our early legal service, which is aimed at that really early intervention. So it's parents who have just become involved with child safety or at risk of becoming involved with child safety. This is a service that's operated by the lawyers in our child protection team in-house. And it's designed to provide advice and advocacy for vulnerable parents. So as an example, it would be a mother who is pregnant who the department have already indicated that they have plans to remove the child at birth. Or for example, a family who child safety have asked to sign up for an IPA, sorry, an intervention with parental agreement, and the family is not sure if that's something that they should agree to or not. So as you can see on the slide, there is a number of ways that our lawyers can assist in this space. Obviously providing legal advice and advocacy, attending meetings on behalf of the clients, helping to build their support networks so that the child protection concerns can be addressed, And then obviously if it does proceed into the court space, assisting with legal aid applications. So this slide just provides a little bit more information about our early legal service. We do, similar to Marie, work with wraparound services and referral partners for this specific service. That's simply because we are lawyers, we can give legal advice. We are not experts in the fields that often the clients need support in. So for example, housing, mental health, things like that. So wraparound services can be really broad. It can be almost anything. So as I said, health, mental health, domestic and family violence, if it's a service in relation to housing, drug and alcohol support, financial supports, almost anything. So it's the combination of a client who has social needs in addition to legal needs, and it's designed for parents before they enter the court space. There are no grants of aid for our ELS service, so it is done on the referral. And generally speaking, we operate out of the Southeast Queensland region. So as a general rule, we'll travel within an hour of our office. However, there is some flexibility for that. This next slide, again, just does a little bit of an overview of who can be involved in our ELS service. Again, engaged with a referral partner, that one is really important so that we can provide a holistic approach to the parents and the current circumstances that they're in. There is some flexibility in this program. So for example, if you have somebody in mind who you think might benefit from this service, child safety have just started their initial investigation, they're just starting to do the interviews, but you're not a referral partner, please reach out to us. We can get in touch with the client and start the process of providing that advice, while simultaneously doing the process of the training to become a referral partner. The only thing to note is that obviously clients need to consent. So that's really important before you send through any referrals.
We just, sorry to interrupt, Meg, we have a question about the early legal service.
Yeah, sure.
And the question is, are there any moves to expand the early legal service to outside of South East Queensland?
That would be a question for somebody much higher up than me, I apologise. Definitely something I can take back. If you have somebody in mind and you think you might sort of be on the cusp of that South East Queensland border, please just get in contact. As I said, sometimes we can be flexible with it. For example, if we already have lawyers travelling into the area, things like that. So send it through and we'll see what we can do, or if we can fit you into one of our other programs.
Thank you.
Okay. So this is just an example of how our early legal service can work. So in this situation, as you can see on the slide, we had a really young mum who was 6 months pregnant, and child safety had already conducted their investigation and advised the client that they had an intention to remove the baby upon its birth. Child safety had a range of concerns, including the parents' young ages, the lack of supports in place, and domestic and family violence that was being perpetrated by the father. In this instance, Legal Aid was able to work with the supports that were already in place to essentially help fill the gaps. We were able to advocate on behalf of the client at multiple meetings, negotiate discharge plans from the hospital, and help create ongoing safety plans. And we had a really great result for this one, where baby was able to remain in the home with the client after birth, and child safety applied for a directive order in relation to the father's contact to help make sure both the mother and the baby were safe. And then this is just a second example where we had a First Nations client who had a 5-month-old baby. The client was previously a child in care and had a OPG appointed due to significant intellectual impairments, and she had also suffered domestic and family violence. So our early legal service was able to work with the OPG who was appointed for the client to help communicate with the support services and NDIS that were already in place. We were able to advocate for the client numerous meetings, and again, help with the support plans to reduce the risk within the home. The outcome for this one also was really great. The baby was not removed in the end and was able to stay with the parents under an intervention with parental agreement, so there weren't any court orders in place. And it was just managed through ongoing safety and support plans and case plans. The other really positive thing for this matter was that we actually got some really positive feedback from OPG, in particular about this lawyer's ability to build rapport and engage with the client, which is great. So this just provides a really general overview of what grants of aid are available. You'll obviously see that there are a lot. There is a grant of aid at almost every stage in the proceedings. That includes the really early stages of the urgent orders, being the court assessment orders. But we also offer orders, post-order grants of aid. So, for example, if you have a client who there are already child protection orders in place, but they are having ongoing difficulties communicating with child safety or progressing their matter, they can actually apply to legal aid and have a lawyer who can attend either a family group meeting or a contact review meeting on their behalf to help advocate and try to get things back on track for them. There are also grants of aid available for QCAT proceedings, although it is important to note that QCAT has to approve a lawyer being appointed prior to that application being made. The other thing worth mentioning is that in child protection, we are not merits tested until we get to a final hearing or if a client wants an interim hearing. So the clients only need to meet the means test to be eligible for a grant of aid. And then the final thing I wanted to talk to you about today is how children can participate in the proceedings. So if you're working with a family or a young person who is currently subject to a matter before the court and they think they may wish to participate, there's a couple of different ways that that can occur. I would say the most common is through the separate representative. They are a lawyer who is appointed by the court to act in the best interests of the children. They present the views and wishes of the child to the court to the extent that they can, but they are not bound by the views and wishes of the child. A direct representative is a lawyer who is appointed on behalf of the child. They act on instructions. If you have a child who does want a lawyer and to be legally represented in the proceedings, a lawyer will need to assess that they are competent, which means that they have sufficient understanding of the processes and the decisions that are being made to be able to make their own decisions. If a child has a direct representative, they have all the same rights through that relationship as what a parent would have. So, for example, the confidentiality obligations. Sorry. If you do have somebody in mind that you think would like to become involved in the court proceedings, a direct representative can be appointed through making an application to legal aid. And then the alternative is a child advocate. So again, their role is to provide information and advice to the child. It can extend beyond the court space. However, they can support the child in participating in things like family group meetings and court-ordered conferences if that's something the child wants. Their job is to ensure that the child's views and wishes are expressed in the court proceedings. And if it does become the case that the child does want a direct representative, they can assist the child to complete a legal aid application. For a child to be appointed an advocate, a referral has to be made to the Office of the Public Guardian with the child's consent. And again, the Office of the Public Guardian has to be satisfied that the child has capacity. If you have a child and you don't know what the best, or they don't know how they wish to participate, again, that's something that we can speak to the child about through our advice clinic, and we can help work out the best way forward for them.
I have another question, Meg.
Sure.
So this is just going back to grants of aid.
Okay.
The question is, if a young person is struggling to apply for a grant of aid due to low capacity and they are needing support from a lawyer with orders in place for their own children, how can Legal Aid help them apply for a grant of aid?
So again, there's a couple of different services in that instance. If they are able to reach out to Legal Aid and make a booking through our advice clinic, I would suggest that. But it sounds like referral pathways might also be able to assist in that situation.
There's also another service that we provide, the client assistance service. So depending on specifically what assistance they require, that could also be something that they could look into as well. So if it's physically filling out an application, I know that in the regions, depending on where you might be located, the clients can also just simply walk into a Legal Aid office and they can be provided some assistance over the counter. But certainly either going through the referral pathways program, if they don't have the capacity to reach out themselves to get that legal advice, or something like the client assistance service that could help.
And just I was going to ask about the client assistance service. So is that something a client needs to ask for, or will Legal Aid just determine, okay, we think we're going to refer you internally to this particular team?
Yeah, so what I believe generally happens is if a client reaches out to perhaps our call centre and is speaking to somebody, in relation to booking and advice, and makes it clear that there is that extra assistance required, then our call centre would usually be, sort of the first to say, we've also got this available as well.
Mm-hmm.
If it came through the referral pathways program, through me, whether it's myself or one of the teams that's providing that advice, once we get some more information,
yep.
It would then be identified then, so we can then, sort of point them in the right direction at that point.
I think that question leads really well into my next slide. Literally just there's no wrong door. If you have a situation like that and you're not sure what the most appropriate way forward is, but you do have a client who you know needs some support, reach out to any one of us. There is, as Marie's already said, there's a lot of intersection between domestic and family violence, child protection and family law issues. While I've spoken specifically about child protection services, we are aware that the clients often have, if not all three, a combination of these issues. And our lawyers have really varied experience and can help in all of these issues. So if you've reached out to the child protection team and we assess that perhaps we're not the most appropriate, we can always assist in I guess, pointing you in the right direction or doing that warm referral so that the client can get the support that they need. And again, if you're not sure, for example, if you fit into one of the specific categories that I've spoken about today, so for example, our outreach or our early legal service, please just get in contact with our team. We will always try to assist wherever we can, even if it's just funneling you through into one of the other programs that is more, one of the other services that is more appropriate. That's me done.
So in terms of referral, did one of you just want to talk to the email addresses on screen?
Yeah. So for each of our services, we do have a different email address just to make things a little bit confusing. So as it says on the slide, when you are referring through to our team, please provide the client's full name, date of birth and contact details, as well as the name of the other person and the children. That's just so that we can complete a conflict check on our end. If it's a specific child safety service centre that they're involved with, please provide that, it's really helpful. And then a brief description. There's 3 email addresses there. If you accidentally send it to the wrong one and your description makes it clear that it actually falls into one of the other services, we will just, again, funnel it through to the appropriate one. So reach out to any of those 3 and someone will get back to you.
And just on that too, in relation to the referral pathways email address, we will add that when an email goes out. So if any of you guys, I'll just reiterate, if any of you guys are interested in becoming an agency partner for the Referrals Pathway program, so that you can warmly refer your clients through, please just reach out. You can either call, we'll provide the a contact number as well, which will be my direct number, but please either call or email and I can respond to you at that stage.
Thank you. So that's the content part of our webinar completed. We have stacks of time for questions. So if you do have a question, please pop it in the question box now. I'm keeping my eye on it. But just while we wait to see if any questions come through, I'll just go through the next couple of slides. So the next slide has our contact details for calling legal aid. So the first one there is our legal information line. That's the 1300 65 11 88. That's our general line for people needing legal information, needing legal help to call, and you can talk to an information officer on the phone, and if they then need advice, they'll be booked in for that advice, and that information that is provided is free. The next phone line is our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander information line. This is a priority phone line. So if you have First Nations clients, we encourage you to use this particular phone number because those calls are answered as a priority in the call queue. And that number is 1300 65 0143. The last number listed there is for people who already have a grant of aid submitted and are checking in on the status of that. And that phone number is 1300 383 900. So, oh, we've got a question come through. Is Queensland Health considered an agency partner by default?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think the way that we are looking at that particular situation is obviously within Queensland Health, there are many different departments or teams and that sort of thing. So what we have done in the past, particularly for the Referral Pathways program, is simply, you know, rather than assume that by doing a training session or getting, you know, one particular department or team on board and then forgetting everyone else, or not forgetting, but, you know, just not them not being included, then we are sort of registering more so a department under the Queensland Health hat as a sort of a separate, each as a separate entity. So depending on what your team is called, or, you know, we would sort of register them that way. So in answer to your question, it's not an automatic registration as such. We still need to, the reason that I suppose we make sure that everybody is registered is particularly so that we can provide that training, so that anybody who is sending warm referrals through is completely understanding of what the process is, you know, what the criteria eligibility is, and all those sorts of things, because we want to make sure that all of the warm referrals that are coming through are appropriate, relevant, and within scope of the Referral Pathways program. Otherwise, you know, we certainly may end up with a lot of, and it sort of goes back to that, you know, that's how specific we are in who we're trying to target, you know, in terms of vulnerability and that sort of thing. So you would still need to do the Referral Pathways introductory training, but in terms of registering you, we would probably just register you as separate entities, you know, but still obviously under that Queensland Health banner or hat. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you, that was a big one.
Yeah.
We have another question. So for people of non-English backgrounds, do you provide on-site interpreter services, or how many days of notice do they need to give you prior to their appointment?
So for duty lawyer services, we will always try to get an interpreter where we can, but because it's the day of the court, sometimes it is quite difficult. With our advice clinic, because you are booked in advance, the possibility of getting an interpreter who is available for that time is much higher. But obviously, if you have a client that you know is going to require an interpreter, just flag that when you are sending through the referrals so that we can get the supports in place so that we are able to actually give that client advice. If it's a duty lawyer service, sometimes we rely on the courts to have booked somebody, and we can kind of grab them 5-10 minutes beforehand to do what we can ahead of court, but it's one of those situations that's quite difficult because we don't have control over when an interpreter is available. And again, it depends on what language they need and how common it is.
And you know, similarly with the referral pathways program, you know, we make that promise of the 1 to 2 business days for the legal advice. The only time I would suggest that that may blow out a little tiny bit would be in times of, you know, requiring an interpreter. And as Meg said, it's simply just due to the availability. And sometimes we find that, you know, specific languages or dialects within the language are a bit more difficult to find an interpreter that's available. So I suppose that just comes with, you know, communication with a client in terms of, you know, the fact that if they do need an interpreter, then we just make them aware that, you know, that might just take a little bit of extra time. So.
Thank you. While we wait to see if any more questions come through, I'll just go through the 2 last slides just to cover off those. So this slide is just basically letting you know our website is a fantastic resource for you. There are literally about 80 free legal information, fact sheets, guides, brochures on there about all sorts of common legal problems. We encourage you to go on there, download them, print them. You can also order free copies of them to be delivered to your organisation with free delivery. So please make use of that amazing resource. And our webinars, our CLE webinars are actually monthly webinars. We will be promoting the next webinar soon, and it will be an overview of legal aid services, looking at how we can help your clients, looking at all the different areas of law that we provide services in, and we will notify you via email or also on our social media of when that one's available for registration. So look out for that one in October. All of our webinars are captioned and uploaded to our YouTube channel, so please feel free to get on there and look at the webinars for Community Health and Education Workers playlist to see all the webinars we've run recently. You can also find out about webinars and other things we have coming up on our social media. We've got Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram and X profiles, so please check those out as well. That's all the content we were running through today. I'm just checking if anyone in the audience has any last minute questions before we finish off for the day. I'll just give everyone a few seconds. Is there any last points you ladies wanted to share at all? Just encouraging people to get in touch if they need legal help, and we'll make sure we connect you with the right team here. Well, if that's all the questions from the audience, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope the content's been really useful to you. Look out for the webinar in a couple of days' time with a link to the recording and all those email addresses we mentioned in the webinar today. And we hope to see you at the next one. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.